Hey guys, this is the kind of videos that I would like to try and post more. It's how I do my work, how I edit menus, design the game, and basically get back to the finish line, hopefully sooner than later. And one of the first things that we noticed that people commented on our Steam Early Access is actually the resolution panel. So after working today with Amir, he just gave me the code to, instead of clicking again and again on the same button to scroll through the resolutions, you actually get scroll through the resolutions when you get to see them all displayed in front of you, instead of just, pressing the button again and again until you hit that resolution that you want. And if you would have missed the resolution, then you'd have to restart all over again. So as you can see now, it works on this kind of like this shape here, the white. It's what causes the buttons themselves to be cut out. So it looks kind of stupid. So I thought I'd show you. I thought it was a good opportunity to just show exactly how I design the UI in the game, specifically when the options menu is already built and some of you are already familiar with it. So it'll be interesting to see how things actually change. So, alright, so as you can see, it cuts off here, it cuts off at the top, and it looks kind of stupid. So let's try and make this a bit sexier. Alright, so essentially when I design UI, what me and my brother Adi did is that we made a lot of these like assets, different kind of assets, metallic parts, wooden planks. Here's Box UI essentially, and these screens that I use throughout. Essentially, I use this for any UI in the game currently. So I took this basic wood panel, which is also the background here for the options menu, and just a couple of these metallic frames. So now, let's say we have this wood piece right here, and that seems to be about the right size. That's going to be as the basic background for what I want to do. So I'm going to give that like a 50% opacity to just see, get a better understanding of the size and to make sure the measurements are correct. And here I have some of these pre-made assets ready to go. So I'm going to start applying them. And since this is essentially a screenshot and not the menu itself, this is my way of ensuring that whatever I do has the correct size, even if it's not like pixel perfect with the resolution, because this is a bit smaller, because you can see it captured the Unity screen like the desktop as well. But it's not a big concern of mine, since most of these are, it's still a menu asset and it's not that relevant to be, completely high def resolution. Now, I'll apologize in advance if I stutter a lot. I'm not used to talking while I work. This is something that I'm gonna try and do. I've seen some other game developers either stream or just upload, quiet, and just complete silence and then working, which is a bit creepy for me. So I decided maybe I'll try and explain, what I do. Maybe it'll be a bit more interesting, because game development on a day-to-day basis is not that exciting. So at least you can see a workflow and maybe learn something from it if you're using Photoshop, or if you're just starting your own game. If you'd like to see like the way I work, what's my workflow, how I, exactly how I work. All right, so, oh, that's terrible. All right, so let's see. There's tons of layers here. It's absolute garbage. I'm just gonna arrange it a bit. My friends who did degrees with Photoshop always completely despise the way that I work with Photoshop, because I do not work in a very organized fashion. And that can be said for a lot of the things that I do creatively. I do not work organized. I just shoot from the hip, see what goes, what feels right, and if it works, it works, and if it doesn't, I'll just go back and iterate it. And it really depends, because some project files, like let's say the Photoshop for the entire options menu, because this is like a screenshot while I just, you know, making a small asset that you'll see that I'll put in the game shortly. But essentially, if I do a big thing that I'm gonna need to extract a lot of assets out of it, then I'm gonna really make sure that it's, you know, organized and works perfectly. But here you're gonna see all the layers all over the place because I just don't give a f, and I want to get this done. I have other things to do, and you'll see that, trust me, it's gonna look fine. Just trust me. So I'm gonna use some of these assets. I'm gonna create this square because I want this scroll to be cut off exactly at the top and exactly at the bottom, with a little bit of margin for error. And the wood panel is gonna sit in the background to kind of package it in a way, because these are like scrollable buttons. So I want to create this kind of illusion that they're like moving inside their own independent, you know, area. You'll see what I'm talking about. It's hard to. It's really hard to describe UI for some reason. I really find that difficult. Maybe it's just that English is my second language, but please forgive me. Alright, forgive me. Let's fix that up a little bit. Get this organic feeling going. As you can see, I'm just gonna remove some of the additional metal. Alright, so that seems about a good frame. Let's take the wooden panel, move it to the correct Z axis, get the opacity back up, and now let's just delete the whole thing. I'm using the line tool to just highlight everything that I want to keep. You can always invert it by, here, I'll show you now. You can either do Ctrl-X to cut this away, give you a perfect slice, or you can do Ctrl-Shift-I, and then everything that's outside, it just inverts, it inverts it basically. Everything that's outside is, you can delete manually, or, you know, any way that you want. Then you get this perfect clean slice of wood, which looks pretty neat. Now, in order to separate this a bit from the background, because it is a separate UI, I'm going to play with the colors a little bit and see how that goes. Oop, nope. Alright. First of all, let's do the classic photo filter, which I use for nearly every asset in the game that goes through Photoshop, because everything has a bluish tint to it with the whole rainy winter kind of vibe that we're going for. And yeah, that seems to be about right. And I'm gonna make it a lot darker, because I want the buttons to really show themselves off. That's a bit too much. Let's do 50. Yeah, that looks about right. Now, here's the important part of how I actually extract things out of Photoshop to work with Unity. There are several methods to do this. I'm sure that other developers have their own methods that were probably better than this one, but that's what I've been doing ever since we've started development, and it seems to be working for me. So I'm going to select all the layers besides the wooden background. Now, I'm going to merge those. I'm going to cancel out all the other layers that I'm not using, because it's going to make the process faster. And I'm going to use a script. Now, this script is something I found online. That's something I've been carrying with me since my days in Microsoft. I've started using it there, like what, 2011? Yeah, something like that. I'm still using it. It's a fantastic, very quick and efficient way to extract with the minimum amount of space that you can, you know, because you want the textures to be, you don't want to have too much of an empty space around the textures, just takes up too much memory. So what I am doing, am I still recording? Yeah. This is my first video. I'm still trying to get the hang of this. There's a bit of a button outside, but it doesn't matter. We'll play around with it. All right. So, we've got the wooden panel, we've got the frame. I'm just gonna give the frame the same tint that I just told you about, the photo filter. That seems about right. And now, just for the heck of it, I'm gonna duplicate this layer. And I'm gonna paint it completely black, move it behind the metallic surface. There we go. That should look good. Usually for shadow layers I either go, I think, it looks like here I did 70. 50? 70, 50, 70, 50? And we'll keep it on 50 for now. Alright, so I'm just gonna call this frame. No, it's the resolution panel shadow. Naming is important because there's so many freaking assets in the game that when you put it inside the engine itself, you want it to, you know, quickly identify it. So resolution panel, wood, resolution panel, frame. We'll call this one frame shadow. Alright, now, that's the scripting tool. Fraps is kind of showing me the... Alright, see the frame rate is kind of bothering me there. Alright, so I have the scripts, export layers to file. Now these are all over the internet, you can find these, they're free. I give them a bit of money because I try to support other developers doing their thing. And you have some options here, so you can extract it as JPEGs, as BMPs, TIFF, depends on what you work. I work with PNGs in Buck. It gives you the alpha channel. This disables the alpha channel in the background so you can get a clear image. And what it does, it trims the layers down. So now you'll see, I'll put this in the desktop. Yeah, let's do it instead of the desktop. Let's do it a bit more organized. Let's extract it immediately into the folder, project folder. Just gonna hit run. Now, the more frames, the more layers you have the right side of the Photoshop here, the layer count, it's gonna take longer because it goes through every frame, even the ones that aren't highlighted. It still counts them for some reason. It's a bit primitive, but it does the work. It gets the job done. All right, so now that we have that, let's go to Unity and show Explorer. Just want to keep this tidy, and it should be here. There we go. So now, we'll take that to the textures, user interface, options menu. I think I'm just gonna drop this here. It gives every frame you export this number prefix that I prefer to remove, my personal preference. And now Unity is gonna load it in. Alright. So now that that's there, let's go to the user interface, options menu. It's right here. I'm gonna create all these and put them inside our little scene here for the options menu. Now, there's a different, these are, I mean, it's more technical, but essentially these layers behave differently than in-game layers. In-game layers are indexed in a way. It means that they're written down, they have a number that keeps track of them. So if I want to change anything in the game, like, you know, you complete a mission, it opens a door, it disables something. Like for those of you who played the early access, Zoe moves from one place to another. It's because she has an index in her scene, which means that I can, in the game state or in the code itself, just tell the game, you know, disable her, remove her from there, and enable her in a different area, because that's her ID number. So things that are usually in UI, depending on which UI, there's no need to create them as indexed objects, so we create them as simple sprites. So I'm going to carry them in to the resolution panel, which is our current UI. And now let's start placing the things. Now, as you can see, that it's a bit smaller than how it was, and I told you at the beginning because I did a screenshot of Unity, not a full screen, not a 920 by 1080. So this is to be expected. But again, this is a menu UI. It's for the options menu. It doesn't need to be as crisp as other UIs, so it's less relevant. But I don't know. There might be some purists out there who might take an issue with that. It's my game, bitches. Alright. So now let's start working with the wooden panel. I'm gonna place it here. And now here comes the tricky part. As you can see, this is the game scene. Alright, now whatever I just placed here isn't really registered yet, so if I click on the menu itself, it's supposed to update it. It is updating it, it's just that the Z isn't correct at the moment. This is something that Emil always gives me for, because I'm stupid and I can't really get the numbers and the complete understanding of how the Z index actually works. But I pretty much get the hang of it. It just has to do with the depth. It just changes the values, the minus, plus. He wrote me down. I think I have it here somewhere. He wrote it down on a note, on a pathetic little note for me to to try and remember how it works. Nah, screw it. But alright, let's see if I can get this working. So as you can see, the second I change the Z index, the depth index, it starts to appear in the actual menu. The wood still isn't because I haven't changed it. There we go. Now that's good because I want it to be behind the button. So that's 20. Let's remove the shadow for a second so I can get a better understanding here. Frame. Yeah, that seems to be about right. So we got this going. There we go. And this is gonna be 10. Yeah. Alright, that puts this behind the whole thing, which is good. Opacity might be a bit too weak, but it seems to be alright. Now the wood, I'm just gonna enlarge it by a little bit to make sure it covers the entire frame. That seems about right. Okay, as you can see, the white frame is exactly where the number and the button itself will be cut off, so you create the scrolling effect and you can keep it neat and tidy. So, resolution panel. Let's see. Stencil bounds. I'm not sure if it's that. Is it that? Is it this? Yeah? No? Alright, let's copy this number. Minus 50. I can't change it apparently. Alright. Oh, no. He told me about this, the mask. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. Alright, so I'm gonna change the mask a bit to really fall like right on the edge here to make it disappear like behind the thing. Like somewhere here, maybe. Alright, let's just give it a shot, see how it functions, alright? Let's see. Alright. That looks to be about right. Play. That's not bad. That's not bad for a first try. That's cool. It's actually a nice side effect, you can see, because of the buttons, it has this like bolt on the side, so it actually creates this effect like it's really scrolling on the pipe itself, which is nice. That's fun to get it working on the first time. That's a lot of fun. Here the resolution doesn't change, we're still in the editor. I'm just making sure that it works. At least here, you know, that it functions correctly. Something feels weird about the scrolling. It's reversed. When you scroll down, is it supposed to go up? I don't know. We'll leave it to you players to decide if it's good or not. If not, I'll invert it. But yeah, that seems to be working nicely. That took us about, what, 15 minutes? Yeah, that seems about right. And so we got this going for us, which is cool. Now let's see. Specifically, to get this entire thing working, again, because the entire menu has been remade from scratch, let's just make sure that the button itself... Alright, there's no sound effects. Let's just add the sound pack, like I did before. Menu nav. And we select. Menu select. And that should do the trick. Yeah, alright. I suppose this video will end here. This was a nice little preview just to show how I actually work with UI, Photoshop, and Unity inside our development environment. Essentially, what I'm going to do now... I say essentially too much, right? Yeah. So what I'm going to do... I'll tell you because it's boring. It's not really something that I can explain. You see these white squares? All these white squares are going to be replaced with buttons because a lot of people have reported on the forums that they have some issues with the way that the buttons react, the way that they're not really intuitive. We also added the option to decide when you take loot if you want to just take them. This is a long argument between me and Amil that I wanted the loot panel to open up, and then you can just select, like loot everything. Whoopa. And you can loot everything that's in the loot panel, but he said I just want to have it on default just to take all. And we couldn't agree on it, and on PAX we got kind of feedback that's all over the place, but I decided to just make it loot all as default, because why not? And for anybody who prefers my method, and you should, the option is there. So that's what we're adding now in the options menu. Another thing that I can show you is that what we're actually changing in the keyboard layout, we had some issues with the key bindings and it didn't work for some people for some reason. It did work for us internally, but we found some inconsistencies. So what I'm gonna do is recreate the whole key bindings menu. You have the items on the left, which are the main key, and this is the mod key, the right. Like for instance, you want to do dodge, so it's left plus shift. So the mod buttons have some additional limitations. So you won't be able to bind everything with the mod button, and it's mostly just to make it a bit easier on us because we want to make these changes as quickly as possible. Another thing that's important to note is the way that the menu itself functions. It's used to be, let's see, I still have the old one here. Yeah, so it used to be previous menu and controller and keyboard and controller. What is going to be here? You can actually see the old layout. It's kind of cool. You have the key bindings, and you have the areas itself. So it moved left to right. Right now it's like it's rotating in a way. So it's going to start off as default as being the main options menu. Then you're going to have two options. You either go to the right or you go to the left. The left one will be the controller scheme. This one, which we're going to add. Well, we'll see if this works outside of the editor. You see these kind of inconsistencies tend to happen. Oh wait, no, I think it's because this is still active. Yeah, I'm sorry, Amil. Just don't. All right, I'm sorry. And so you can actually move like left to see the controller scheme, just so you get a better preview, or right to the key binding menu, and then if you click another button, it's just going to get you back to the main menu. So it should be a bit, not to the main menu, it's the main options panel, and from any of them, clicking escape or back should send you back to the main menu. So yeah, I apologize if this is a bit awkward in a way, but I'm just trying to get a format going. I want to do more of these kind of updates, show you guys exactly what I'm doing, what's the kind of work that I do actually as a designer. I do a lot of things, every studio is different, and because it's just me, myself, let me try that again, because it's me, Amil, and my brother, we all take additional roles to try and make sure this game actually, you know, is progressing well enough and that it's fun. So I don't know, hopefully for some people who are interested in Photoshop and game design, I'm going to go into further details on that in future episodes, and I will also do an entire show about animating the characters, everything that we're going to start adding into the game or modifying. I'm going to actually film. It helps me concentrate, helps me to explain to myself as well, because this is all self-taught, and hopefully I can enrich your experience, or at least teach you a few things along the way from my experience, because why not? So until the next episode, catch you next time.